My first overall play is going to be Will Levis over 210.5 passing yards. In this video, guys, you're going to find out that along with 5 other plays within this Jacksonville, Tennessee game. I'm going to break all this down for you guys and so much more. In this video, we're also going to be going over what's called the plus EV betting strategy through the strategy of correlating plays together within a single game. I'm going to show you all the reasoning behind why this is a profitable long-term strategy. Now, in order to understand why this is such a profitable long-term strategy, we must first understand how PrizePicks does not alter their payouts based on the specific combinations of players, player props, single sports that you put into a slip. They are a fixed payout platform, meaning that they do not alter the payouts regardless of all the explained, right? So, for instance, if I took the over and under, doesn't matter, of Will Levis and Dak Prescott, the payout never changes for a two-man power, right? If I throw in Kenny Pickett, over under, doesn't matter. It's not going to change the payout here for my power play or my flex play for a three-man. And even if I switch over to other sports like League of Legends, I throw in combo plays, I switch over to the NBA, take the over, under, whatever, it doesn't matter on Brook Lopez, Kyle Kuzma, the payouts never change away from their fixed payouts, right? There's only a couple exceptions that they actually alter the payouts. And that is more so true here if I were to take the over of Will Levis and if I took the under of Will Levis and I took the under of, let's say, Trevor Lawrence within the same game. The reason that they're altering these payouts is because some of these player prop combinations are positively correlated and presenting a mathematical edge long term. All right, and it's only with a couple of combinations. And the way that these fixed payout platforms like PrizePicks and Underdog and Chalk Market are able to fly under the radar and call themselves a fantasy app is by not altering dynamic payouts, or not offering dynamic payouts rather, and not being able to alter those payouts, right? And that's the way they're able to fly under this radar and call themselves a fantasy app. Whereas these other sports books, they alter their payouts based on the type of combination of players you enter. For instance, on FanDuel, on DraftKings, what you'll see here, whether it's the over of Will Levis and over of Trevor Lawrence or the under of both those players, they know that those two players are positively correlated with one another, meaning that they're two independent variables within the same game, but the better that Trevor Lawrence does means the more likely that Will Levis is to do, right? The more yards they're able to throw for, because if this game does remain competitive, then Will Levis is most likely to do well. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. They're going to need a lot of offense back and forth, right? As opposed to relying on the ground game, put it in their running back's hands, right, and drain out the clock. So FanDuel knows this. So does DraftKings. And with their single game parlay odds, they will alter their payouts drastically. They'll punish their bettors because they know, mathematically speaking, the better that Will Levis does, the better that Trevor Lawrence does, and the worse they do, then the worse the other player is to perform. The more running game is going to be utilized, going to be relied on, and more punting, not as good ball position. So if I were to take the unders on both these guys, as you can see, PrizePicks is like, no. This is a mathematically profitable play, so we're going to alter the payout. But they don't do this for specific combos of players, like both overs. But we know that these two players are positively correlated if we directly compare to the sports books. Now, it's very early in the week, so we don't have exact odds to directly compare to. I normally do this when we have these odds, but it's a Wednesday. They haven't released any of the player props on the sports books. But what we do have is raw projections here. It doesn't matter. We know that these are very positively correlated, right? So I want you guys to take that away from watching this video. And that is where the positive correlation strategy comes into play. Now, Will Levis and Trevor Lawrence aren't the only two players within the same game that are positively correlated by taking both their overs, right? They are strongly correlated, sure, but they're not the most correlated. Let's think about this logically. If we take the available player props within the same game, if we scroll down here to the Jags and the Titans, Christian Kirk is another very positively correlated player with Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, the better that Trevor Lawrence does, the more likely that Christian Kirk is going to do in that same game, right? And the same thing with Will Levis. And we're now taking a group combination of players and positively correlating them together, which again should drastically impact the payout because the sports books, the math behind it supports it, right? But that's not the case. As you can see here, if I hit all the overs of these players, well, I'm still getting a 5x. Not saying that's a good return at all because PrizePicks, we know three-man powers are actually mathematically the worst payout. But what if we throw in some more positively correlated plays within that same game? Well, then it becomes an extremely highly correlated slip. And now we're looking at a 25x, never changes, right? We know that you always get 25x for doing a 6 flex combo. But what if I switch these all to unders, right? That's very heavily positively correlated as well. And PrizePicks is like, no. We have to then cut your payouts in half. Why is it that they alter the payouts on these unders and not the overs when they're just as correlated? Man, minus some decimal points here and there. But to change that to a 12x as opposed to keeping it the same for 25x is where the edge is. And the way that I came up with this slip is I went over to the DGFantasy correlation tool, where it literally reveals the most correlated, the most profitable slips by specific game, by specific DFS app. So on PrizePicks right now, this is the heaviest correlated slip that you have to offer here on this specific game for the Jags and the Titans. I'm not saying that all these players are going to go out and hit the over. I'm saying that given the game scenario here, given the game script, if this does involve a shootout, if it's very close and there's a lot of Will Levis, then there's most likely going to be a lot of Trevor Lawrence. And then there's going to be most likely a lot of Christian Kirk receiving yards, a lot of Calvin Ridley, a lot of Evan Ingram, and a lot of DeAndre Hopkins. Like, the likelihood that Will Levis hits the over of 210 passing yards and that DeAndre Hopkins does not is a lot lower than if they were to both go hit the overs, right? So that's the way the strategy works. And the way, again, I was able to identify this, the fantasy correlation tool is always scanning the market, finding the largest discrepancies between individual player props. As of right now, these are the only players that are available on this this slate. And yes, like if there were some discrepancies with these certain player prop odds, and if there were certain discrepancies, then this might not be a profitable long-term slip. This profit margin actually isn't the greatest, and it's not even the heaviest correlated slip that we can have leading up to game time, but it's still profitable. So if you guys want to take advantage of the slip, I highly, highly recommend it. This is the most profitable slip as of right now between the Jags and the Titans. Again, just finding this on the correlation tool where it's scanning through the entire market. Another thing to note here, and the reason why and the reason how we confirm this is by simply going over to the single game parlay odds on FanDuel or DraftKings. And you'll quickly notice that if you were to place this exact same parlay over on FanDuel, these odds would be anywhere between like 1,500 to like 2,100. The odds are drastically different for a parlay if you're to enter a single game parlay on FanDuel or DraftKings, opposed to on NFL on PrizePicks. As you can see here, I'm getting this at plus 38.50, and the only reason I know the hidden math behind this, I'm taking into consideration the insurance. I'm taking into consideration the EV on each specific leg that you're getting. You're getting each leg at minus 119 implied odds for a 6-man flex slip. If you convert that over to a 6-man parlay and what the sportsbooks would give you for minus 119 odds across the board, you're looking at plus 38.50 odds, which is drastically different, completely different from a FanDuel single game parlay at plus 2,100 odds, plus 1,500 odds. Can you imagine the dip there and the hidden math and showing how heavily correlated this is on FanDuel? So again, they're hiding something from you here on FanDuel. They're saying, hey, this is so mathematically profitable. So we're going to go ahead and just decrease our odds all the way down, dynamically speaking, to alter these payouts to reflect that correct math, whereas PrizePicks does not do that. Anyway, this is the most profitable slip when it comes to NFL. The correlation tool doesn't just show you the most profitable slips overall for NFL. They also show it for college football. They show it for CSGO. I'm going to go ahead and reveal a CSGO slip just because I really do like this CSGO slip. I'm also going to walk through the reasoning on why this is so profitable for CS2, because a lot of people don't know about CS2 and how highly correlated it actually is. So for CS2, heavy correlation is with same game, all overs or all unders, and they can be from completely two different teams. And the reason why is, think about this in NBA terms. If an NBA game goes to 6 overtimes, it's more likely that all the starters, assuming they don't foul out, go over their points, right? Because the more total points that are scored in the NBA game, most likely, right? The same kind of logic applies to CS2. They have a higher likelihood to go to overtime because there's only 13 total rounds between the two teams. So if a game remains competitive, if it goes into overtime, the more likely that their star players are to go over, right? That makes theoretical sense. That makes logical sense, right? So PrizePicks knows this, and they don't allow game stacking. Like, I can't just take all these players from the same game and stack them in the 6-man because they simply just don't allow it. Like, this would be the best play because it's so profitable and because it's so correlated to hit all the overs within the same game. But they don't allow that to happen. They actually only allow one player from each team, which makes sense because it's so correlated. So what we've done is we've programmed this, the correlation tool, to identify 2 players from each matchup that happen to have very soft lines, or if they're a superstar, to positively correlate them together within the same slip. This is a pretty good profit margin. It's actually better than the NFL slip that I showed you because of the heavy correlation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and just put in Enzo, Center, whatever his name is. Again, because they're from the same matchup, we're hoping that this game remains close. Adam, S, over 29. Drop, over 27. Cheersin, or whatever his name is. CH1, or Krisen, whatever his stupid name is, over 28. And then Rouse, over 27. And that's the CS2 slip. And that's it. It's literally that simple. It just shows you the exact slip to enter. Correlation score at 70.1 out of 100. And you plug and play. Again, we're hoping that these games remain close, competitive. If these games go into overtime, like, they're definitely all going over. Even if they remain somewhat close, there's a high chance that these players go over. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this content. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course smash that like button for all of our future NFL content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.